Taking a look at what that means. Of course, now Arsenal have played one more game than Manchester City, and Arsenal sit 4 clear at the top of the table. Ali with us, Stevie as well. We welcome in Jurgen Klinsmann. Jurgen, how on earth did that happen?
Yeah, super interesting game. Obviously, we all thought it's all going Arsenal's way, and I mean, watching the first half, it looked like they were in cruise control. They scored the first goal with Saka's goal, and then second half started a bit differently. Second half, Wolves came far more alive, but in that phase, then Hincapie scored the second goal for Arsenal, and everybody thought this is over, this is done. And I think always when you have that feeling that it's done, then exactly the opposite will happen to you. And Wolves came back with a beautiful goal from Bueno, and then obviously in the last second, then with the own goal then from Calafiori. But I think it was well deserved for Wolves because they showed character. Yeah, they had a good positive body language second half, and they gave it a try all the way till the end, and therefore they deserved that tie.
5 points the difference now between City and Arsenal. City with a game in hand, Stevie, just 2 wins in their last 7.
Yep.
What the heck?
Do you know, I think what has snuck up on everybody, certainly has on me, is that back line, including the goalkeeper, that we thought was impregnable at the start of the season. We waxed lyrical, how great, how tight, how organised, they don't give anything away, they don't make mistakes. Well, that's 11 points in the last 7 games they've thrown away. There's only been 1-0. So that means they're losing goals.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's kind of snuck up on us. But that really is where the problem is defensively. Because as much as they're not exactly playing silky soccer and creating thousands of chances and scoring loads of goals, they're still scoring enough goals to win games. But that back line isn't doing its job anymore. And so that has to be what Mikel Arteta has to figure out and sort out. Because, as I said, going forward, they're scoring enough goals. But defensively, that impregnable Arsenal line is no longer impregnable.
How much did complacency play a part today?
I think it did. And at 2-0, and Jurgen mentioned it, it felt like it was over. And as we say so many times in this studio, it's one thing that we think it's over, miles and miles away from the stadium, but the players themselves felt it was over, and that's where they make the mistake. And it's not something that we're used to seeing from Arsenal in terms of not being able to see out a game. What we have learned from Arsenal this season is that, look, they're not all that convincing, but they do enough. They'll get a set-piece goal, and they'll see out a game because, to Stevie's point, defensively, they have been very solid. And that just wasn't the case today, and I will go as far as to say that after the Bukayo Saka goal, Arsenal should have been in control, and while we expect them to have possession of the ball, Wolves were always in this game. Arsenal were a little bit of hanging on. Now, I just mentioned Wolves are not a good team, and so therefore they have their limitations. But you have to, if you're Arsenal, you have to not only see out the game, but thrive in the end of matches against teams of this quality. You should be able to keep the ball. You should be able to take the possession into the attacking half. You should be able to withstand pressure from Wolves. You should be able to do that. Because if you're not able to do that, what you have done is that you're dead set on keeping Manchester City interested. And it's what they have done over the last few weeks in those results that you just mentioned, that run of results. Manchester City has their own problems. But the longer you allow them to hang around, now it creates a situation in which, hey, maybe we do have a chance. Maybe we're not that far off. Maybe it's not Arsenal going to run away with it, and Arsenal themselves are going to think, well, maybe we're not running away from this. It's now an actual title race.
Yeah, it is indeed, Jurgen, and we know it, and the players and the coaches very much know it as well.
Yeah, it's the whole psychology of things. You know, if you give away a game like this today, and where you're really, I mean, first half totally in cruise control, second half you score the second goal, you got to kind of get these 3 points no matter what, but you give it away. That starts kind of triggering a little bit in your head other thoughts, you know, and so far the season went so well until the last few weeks. You know, in the Champions League in first place and the Premier League in first place, so everything looked so perfect for Arsenal, and suddenly it starts to crumble. And it's dangerous. Obviously Man City now, they watch it, they see it, they are right there. They're gonna go. They are one game in hand, and then let's start with the knockout phase then in the Champions League. So it's gonna be interesting to see now how this group gathers back together and approaches now the next games. And obviously the next game is already on Sunday against Tottenham.
Jurgen, how do you keep out the noise as a manager? What does he have to do?
Well, as a manager, obviously you try to tell them non-stop, be aware of this, be aware of that, to just wake up. You try to give them a wake-up call. When they scored the first goal, beautiful goal, by the way, by Bueno, Wolves, you have somehow need a reaction in terms of somebody screams at somebody and is a chain reaction of energy to wake up again and to get these 3 points. And so it's communication at the end of the day. And if that is not happening, then slowly, Wolves sees the opportunity and sees a chance and puts them under pressure, even if they're last and by far last in the Premier League. Doesn't matter anymore, because now they have the momentum, now they have the energy, and they're pushing until the very last second of the game. So as a manager, you try desperately to communicate that onto the field, but then it depends on who takes that word and communicates it within the team. So who are your leaders then when, they made the 2-1 and it's getting a little bit tricky here. So who is now standing out? Who's screaming around? Who wakes the other one up and make sure that you get the 3 points at the end of the day? So that's how it all has to do with chemistry then from the inside.
Steve, you won 5 league titles.
Yeah.
Everyone has their blip on these runs.
Yeah.
This is a major blip for Arsenal, considering what's happened in previous seasons as well, where we thought maybe this was their year. Psychologically, how do you deal with this as a player?
As a player, you have to make sure you get your job done first. I mean, that's at the end of the day, it's all about all the pieces of the puzzle, the 11 men on the field. If every single one of them plays to the level, both physically, mentally, the preparation. I mean, it encompasses absolutely everything. But that's the first thing you have to do. But if I was Arteta, I think that would be the worry, the biggest worry. And by the way, to answer your question, there's more than a blip.
Right.
Taking 10 points from the last 7 games is more than a blip.
Right.
And the biggest worry I would have as a player and as the manager is what happened in the second half when it went to 2-1. Everybody disappeared. Where were the players who go, right, okay, now we have to take control again? That means that we have to win our battles. That means that we have to be organised. That means that we don't give them a second on the ball. That means that we all have to start closing again. Yes, when you're 2-0 up, sometimes even the best teams can just drop off a little. But I'll tell you what the best teams do. When that punch in the face comes, they respond to it. And that would be the worry. Arsenal didn't respond this time.
You asked the question, how do you keep the noise out?
Yeah.
And honestly, right now, I don't think you're going to try, but you really can't. Because beyond the noise that you're hearing from the outside, now you have noise in your head, in your own head as a player. Where there was certainty before, now there is doubt. And then you have the nightmare that is a cell phone. Because these players and this generation live and die with this thing. And when in their algorithm, in their timeline, what's going to come up? Arsenal struggles again.
Yeah.
Arsenal drops points again. So the noise, while as a manager, ideally you want to keep it out, it's now part of the conversation. And you have made it part of the conversation that you may just give this away, that you may just choke this away. That is the conversation that now surrounds Arsenal from here on out. Now, it doesn't mean that they cannot go on and win this thing, but they're really going to have to go back to winning the duels, winning challenges, doing the things that make them a good team. And in moments of pressure, instead of hiding, instead of actually finding the time on the ball and the space on the ball and the movement on the ball, you have to find a way to see these games out in a far more comfortable manner than what we saw today. Whereas in games in the past, and I'm not going to suggest over this blip or not blip, but I would say a month ago, maybe even 2 months ago, you would have certainly said, Arsenal have the look of a champion. They did not look like a champion today.
So this is then what Prestiani had to say in response to those allegations. I want to clarify that at no time did I direct racist insults at the player Vinicius Jr, who unfortunately misinterpreted what he thought he heard. I've never been racist to anyone, and I regret the threats I received from Real Madrid players. We heard from Infantino today. Here comes a lot of words. I was shocked and saddened to see the incident of alleged racism towards Vinicius Jr in the UEFA Champions League match between Benfica and Real Madrid. There is absolutely no room for racism in our sport and in society. We need all the relevant stakeholders to take action and hold those responsible to account. At FIFA, through the Global Stand Against Racism and the Players' Voice panel, we are committed to ensuring that players, officials and fans are respected and protected, and that appropriate action is taken when incidents occur. He continues, I commend referee Francois Leclerc for activating the anti-racism protocol by using the arm gesture to stop the game and address the situation. FIFA and football shows full solidarity to victims of racism and any form of discrimination. I will always continue to reiterate no to racism, no to any form of discrimination. Shaka Hislop is with us. Sid, I just want to start with you and just get the Spanish point of view from what happened 24 hours ago. What has the post-mortem, if you like, been like?
Well, the focus really has been on how bad this was, on the significance of Real Madrid being very close to walking away, the discussions that took place about the possibility of them refusing to play entirely. And of course, Arbeloa post-game said that he'd said to Vinicius, if you want to do this, we will back you. Listening to Tchouaméni, listening to Kylian Mbappé, it's clear that there's a point at which they are thinking about it and then a point at which it changes, but it's not entirely clear what changes that. And I think as you know, the gravity of this, the nature of this, the fact that this is such a high-profile player at Real Madrid has meant this has been absolutely front and centre in Spain across today, and there is a desire now for the investigation to discover, if indeed the racist abuse can be discovered, to discover that and then to act.
Shaka, if you're Infantino, what do you do? How do you discipline these players? How do you go about trying to take the game forward?
Well, Infantino mentioned two panels in that rather lengthy statement. No, I'm not sure which would have kind of jurisdiction or priority in this circumstance. But you hand all the evidence over to one of those two panels to do their investigations, their interviews, and players from both sides, and you make an announcement from there. You come to a conclusion from there, and you act or don't, as the case may be. But for too often we've seen this from Infantino in the past. We've seen this from football administrators in the past. Wordy statements, very heavy on, we are serious about this, but then it becomes very light on action. And now, on the one hand, I want to sympathize because it's difficult to prove racism as it occurs, and kind of echoing some of the sentiments that Ali expressed on the show yesterday. Saying in this circumstance, you have no smoking gun. Prestiani covered his mouth for reasons that I guess if he's interviewed, he will answer for. To his statement, he says he was misinterpreted or misunderstood, but he offers nothing as to what he said to be misunderstood. So from here going forward, what I firmly believe is that investigation has got to revolve around those moments. And while, again, to Ali's statements yesterday, we have no smoking gun, the fingerprints of racism are all over this. So I'm not sure that you necessarily need to see Prestiani's mouth. Apart from which, and again, it was discussed yesterday, why cover your mouth in that circumstance? If it's, as Jose Mourinho said to Vinicius Jr. on the sidelines, words along the lines of, don't celebrate like that, it upsets us, whatever it is, then you go and you say that in his ear, as Jose Mourinho did, man to man. That's fine. Players understand that. Players respect that. You can have a conversation. You saw Kylian Mbappé come over to join that conversation. But if, as you do, as Prestiani does, stand 4 or 5 feet away, have a conversation and cover your mouth to say something further, then I'm sorry. And my apologies if this is a little juvenile, if it quacks like a duck, waddles like a duck, and looks like a duck, you have a hell of a job disproving that it's not a duck. And that's what we have here. This has all the hallmarks, all the fingerprints of it being racist abuse from Prestiani. That weak statement from him, I'm sorry, does not absolve him. Not only was it weak, how does Prestiani then make himself the victim in this? These are the things that infuriate black players who've been calling for firm action around this. And Infantino and FIFA and whichever panel they decide to put behind this need to take action. Otherwise, players will be forced to take that action in their own hands.
The hypocrisy of this from Jose Mourinho, of course, who's got some of those famous celebrations that we've seen over the last 15 years on the touchline. It's not ignored in this. But I think, Shaka, what's more important to deal with is the fact that there seems to be some blaming on Vinicius Jr.
Which continues to happen and is as ridiculous now as it ever was. Now, there's a couple of things about this from Jose Mourinho that has me a little conflicted. Now, Jose Mourinho has coached all over the world, coached players from all four corners of the planet, and is liked and respected from all those players, regardless of their race. And I'm sure many, if not all of those black players are now kind of embarrassed by Jose Mourinho's comments. Now, Vinicius Jr., correctly, if I'm wrong in saying, did not leave the park, did not gesture towards the fans, as I did Jose Mourinho during his career, whether you liked it or not, as I did when Adebayor did that knee slide, playing for Manchester City, whether you liked it or not, or even more recently, David Moyes and his celebration. To somehow use that as an excuse. And Jose Mourinho is right in the first thing he said, that Prestiani's comments and Vinicius Jr.'s celebrations are two completely separate things and should remain as much. But by somehow integrating the two, you're making it a conversation. You're making it a debate as to whether Prestiani was right or he's wrong. No, there's no debate to this. Prestiani was wrong. And that is what needs to be addressed. If you have an exception with what Vinicius Jr. did in the celebration, then he should be shown a yellow card. And he was. That is where it's ended. Anything following up from that is about Prestiani and completely separate. Please don't try to conflate the two, Jose Mourinho. You know better than most in this game about how it works. And I get you're trying to defend your player, your club, and everything that goes along with it. But right is right, wrong is wrong. And when you start to blur the lines in between the two, even in defending your club, you lose all authority, all moral authority in commenting on this. And this is as disappointing as I've ever seen or heard from Jose Mourinho.
And Sid, this is a narrative, of course, which has followed Vinicius Jr. around La Liga grounds.
Yeah, and I think I just to pick up on what Shaq said. I think there isn't a debate, and that's the absurd thing about this. And let's paint a hypothetical situation. Let's assume that Vinicius Jr. after scoring that goal did the worst celebration we have ever seen. Let's assume he did something really grotesque. Let's assume he did something really offensive. Let's assume he did something really provocative. None of that would have justified him being racially abused. It's just, as Shaq rightly says, it's just a different thing. Now, the two things get conflated, but there can be a difference, and there is a difference, and it's so important that this gets seen between, you can dislike Vinicius. You can not like the way he behaves. You can not like the way he celebrates in goal. You can whistle him. You can chant about him not winning the Ballon d'Or. You cannot racially abuse him. There is no justification for that. If you think that is a legitimate weapon to have a go at a player, to put off a player, to go back at a player who you think has behaved badly, then you are wrong. Then you are a racist. And it's as simple as that, really. And it was so disappointing to hear that as an explanation. It can be part of your discourse if you're talking about a normal reaction to a celebration. It cannot be part of your discourse if you're talking about a player who's been racially abused.
Sid and Shaka, thank you very much. Shaka referred to yesterday's show, of course, where we heard from Ali and Stevie and Frank on the subject. If you haven't seen it, be sure to check that out over on our YouTube channel. Bodo Glimt 3, Inter 1. Remember, these ties played over 2 legs. But what a task Inter have now in the second leg in Italy as we welcome in former Inter player Jurgen Klinsmann is with us. Whoa, that was not pretty viewing for your boys.
Well, I have to say this was, and I already spoke to some friends in Milano. This is an earthquake for Italian football. It's an earthquake what happened there tonight. Bodo Glimt, obviously, they totally deserved to win this game. They were fantastic, all 3 goals, as you said, played out fantastically. The energy that they had, and we have to think about it. Bodo Glimt, they are still in off-season. They haven't even started their season yet in Norway. And they were resilient. They were feisty. They were tough. They were playing well. Technically, very, very gifted players. All of them, beautiful goals. And Inter didn't know what to do. Obviously, they had two posts. First half, Damian hit the post. Then second half, as we saw, Lautaro Martinez hit the post. So there could have been 1 or 2 more goals from Inter. But the body language of the Inter players that they were confronted with this high energy from Bodo Glimt, they didn't know what to do. And this is a disaster. It's a disaster for a club like Inter Milan in the knockout phase of the Champions League. I mean, it's obviously still fixable in a certain way in Milano next week, the return match, and it's only 2 goals difference. But it seems like they're getting real nightmares with the Norwegian, the Italians, because Norway kicked out obviously the Italian national team from qualifying directly to the World Cup. Italy has to go to the qualifiers at the end of March, and now comes Bodo Glimt and sends them home with a 3-1 package. I mean, they have nightmares about Norway. And I can only give Bodo Glimt huge compliments, the way they played. And they've held the tempo until the very last minute. You thought, okay, after an hour, they're gonna run out of breath because they are not in season. But no, they kept the tempo high. They kept the ball flowing, and the passing was outstanding. The crowd really enjoyed themselves. But this is an earthquake in Italy.
Yeah,
I can tell you.
Fjortov is loving life at the moment. He's visiting Jurgen in his dreams. Norway are winning in the Winter Olympics. And of course, and Ali, what's interesting about this story, this isn't a fluke. No. You've beat Manchester City, you went to Madrid and beat Atletico, and now you've beaten Inter.
Right. And so the fact that they did what they did against Manchester City, which was completely outplay them, should have been the cautionary tale for Inter. They should have known, hey, if this can happen to Manchester City, it can also happen to us. And the common denominator between that game against Manchester City and today with Inter is that Bodo Glimt somehow surprised both Manchester City and Inter with their level of energy, with their enthusiasm, with their willingness to get numbers around the ball. Now, what is Inter expecting when they go to the end of the world in Norway, all the way up there to play in this tiny stadium, that these people, all they have to do is support this team? They're excited about this moment. What do you think the energy is going to be like? What do you think the intensity is going to be like? And if you didn't pay attention to what they did against Manchester City, then this is why you're exposed today. So to Jurgen's point, Inter, they have this blank stare about them like, wait, oh, they're running. Oh, they're moving. Oh, they're closing down the ball. Oh, wait, we're second to every challenge. And what was most impressive about Bodo Glimt today, and it has been impressive over the course of their run in Champions League, but today in particular, was that once they regained possession of the ball, the quality of decision and the quality of execution as they get out on transition. That first pass out of pressure, that second pass that finds the open man, movement on the outside, movement on the inside, combination play. This is not we're just going to dump the ball and see what happens. Everything has a purpose in the attack for them. They know they're not going to have a lot of opportunities to get forward. So when they do get forward, they do so with a purpose and with clarity of thought, clarity of mind, and execution. A lot of quality in the attack for them in the final third, efficient and effective inside the 18-yard box. This is not, as you just mentioned and described it, this is not a fluke.
It's funny how yesterday we were talking about the culture of Italian football, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, with Juventus losing
Juventus.
5-2, yeah.
So when it went to 1-1, I thought, right, Inter have to just be smart. They've kind of weathered the storm by getting back on level terms, so surely they're just going to shut things down. Don't let them have anything. It never happened. I mean, Jurgen, is there any side in Italy that can play defensively now? Because it seems like it's just goals all over the place. And then when they do get back in the game, like Inter today, they can't shut it down. What's going on?
I think they're realizing that a lot of things has been developed over the last 10, 12 years the wrong direction. I think that, I mean, I read the daily newspapers in Italy, the sports papers, and they started to lose kind of having trust in their defensive capabilities, because they always think as long as it's 1-0 or maybe 1 goal, we're going to fix this game, because we always solid defensively. Almost all the teams play with a back five in Italy. Also the top teams play a back five. Very rarely you see a back four, which is used in most of the other countries. But they had so much trust in the way they did it over decades that right now they're losing that trust. Has also to do with the national team and in a certain way not having qualified, for the last 2 World Cups. In the middle, they won in the European Championships, but they haven't qualified for the last 2 World Cups. And now they risk again not qualifying for the World Cup, which we hope that they do, because you need a country like Italy in your World Cup. But there's a huge discussion going on in Italy about how to approach games. Because I would describe it, they approach the game with a cultural or a mentality not to lose the game. So it's not necessarily I go on the field to win the game. I go on the field not to lose the game. And that plays psychologically, it plays a few games in your brain, because if you always think about not losing, then you never really risk. But you have to risk. If you want to win a game, you got to go and risk something, and you got to go and get the 3 points. For the Italians, basically, tying the game, ending up with 1 point is always still accepted. It's accepted. In other cultures, it's not. In the Premier League, it's not. In the Bundesliga, it's not. In Spain, it's not. You play there to win the game and get the 3 points. And now they kind of wake up more and more, also the top teams in Italy, saying we cannot use that approach anymore. We have to approach it like the rest of the world and say we're going to go for 3 points. We want to win the game, and not basically just play for not losing the game. But it keeps the coaches safe, the managers safe. They don't want to risk. They don't want to lose their job. If they lose 2 games, then they lose their jobs. And so it's, this is tonight. This is a real tragedy for Italian football, as it was last night with Juventus at Galatasaray. This is unacceptable for Italians, conceding 5 goals in Turkey and 3 in Norway.
Atalanta, of course, losing as well to Dortmund. Jurgen, how easy is this going to be to overcome basically in the second leg? Obviously, Inter with home advantage, but still a big task.
It's going to be a huge task, because this is a very good team, Bodo Glimt. As we saw just now, all the results that they have over the last 2-3 years there in Europe, it's fantastic. So they will give them a fight. They will be feisty. They will also go for goals. So they will not just defend. They will try to score a goal or 2, even in Milano. The crowd definitely, it will be packed, 80,000, and they will push Inter forward. They will still believe in it. But the longer the game will go on and Inter doesn't score the first goal, the more discontent the people will get, and the more you maybe will hear people whistling and going at their own team. So this will be a very psychologically a very difficult game to play for Inter Milan.
Before I let Jurgen go, I just want to remind you, huge event at the end of the month, of course, the Classica, live on ESPN Plus, and the show will be live in LA. With Ali, with Kay, and with Jurgen Klinsmann as well. For more information, just click on the QR code there at the bottom of the screen. Jurgen and Ali in the same room together. Jurgen, I doubt you're going to be able to sleep, are you, between now and then?
Impossible.
What a time to be alive. Be sure, obviously, to click on the QR code then to take you to registration. Jurgen, thank you very much. And just see, Club Brugge had so many chances as well, but in the end, Atleti with the advantage going into the second leg. I think really to start this segment, I need to just remind people what Atleti have done over the last few weeks, because it really has been from one extreme to the other. We talked, of course, at length after that incredible win against Barcelona. They also beat Real Betis 5-0, but then they went on to face exactly the same opposition in La Liga and lose 1-0. After beating Barca, they got beaten by Rayo Vallecano at the weekend 3-0. 3-3 here today. Look, how can we sit here and possibly try and put any sort of analysis on Atleti at the moment?
Well, we can't. That's the thing.
So let's take a look at Karabag against Newcastle.
So we can't. More importantly, neither can Diego Simeone. Now, you just showed us there the inconsistencies over the last few games. All you had to do was show us inconsistencies in today's game. Today's game alone. They were in full control of this match, 2-0, and it felt like, okay, well, Atletico Madrid are now, I was hoping that they would stay on the front foot, but that wasn't the case because it's not within them. But you have to imagine 2-0 away from home, you're solid defensively, you keep everything in front of you. Club Brugge is not good enough to break you down. You imagine in your head, if you're Diego Simeone, that that's the way things are going to go. But the lack of connection between lines by Atletico Madrid and how much space they afforded Club Brugge in many instances of the game is incredibly surprising, knowing what we know of Atletico Madrid. But what we have come to understand over the last few seasons, and in particular of the last few weeks, Atletico Madrid is an emotional team.
Yeah.
It's a team that thrives on the emotion of one specific game, of one specific instance. When emotionally all of them are engaged and the stadium is behind them and they feel like they're going to fight against everybody and they're going to win every duel and they're defensively they're going to win every challenge, they can win games like they did against Barcelona because they were up for it, because emotionally they were on a high. They cannot sustain it. They cannot sustain it. And that is evidence of an average team. A team that can get up for some games and then comes right back down. If you want to focus on the Barcelona domination and then how they lost to Rayo Vallecano is one thing. I think it's even more impressive, and not in a good way, what they did against Betis. That they beat Betis 5-0 at Betis. And 2 days later, at home, they completely overlooked this team and lost at home. This team is all over the place. And it's really hard to understand and to explain how a Diego Simeone team is low on emotion. A Diego Simeone team defending so poorly at the end of matches. There is just a conceptual disconnect in terms of what the reality is of Atletico Madrid right now and what they have been in years past. And somehow Diego Simeone is in the middle of all of this. These players right now cannot defend, and it was shown time and time again today by Club Brugge.
Second leg prediction?
I think Atletico will still go through.
Yeah.
Because of what Ali said. Because the second leg will be about emotion. And when it comes down to that, they can get up for it. That's the reason.
You agree?
Yeah, yes, I guess.
Right.
And that's the point, the larger point about Atletico Madrid. Yes, I agree. I'm with you. I hear you. I guess. We don't know with any certainty.
The bottom line is, look at the players that Real Madrid signed over the last 10 years and look at the players Atletico Madrid signed. When you play for Real Madrid, you have to have a certain mentality because you have to be at least 8 out of 10 every single time because you're expected to win every single time. That's not what Atletico Madrid does. They buy players that Real Madrid don't want.
Well, Julian Alvarez was supposed to be the exception to the rule, wasn't he? In that sense, he was your match winner.
We can't talk about the exceptions to the rule, Dan. Talk about all the players that they've spent a lot of money.
Yes.
They spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of money on generally players that the Real Madrid don't want. And well, that's not to say they're not really good players. But the difference between being there and being there is the mentality. And his players, as much as Simeone had the mentality, even he can't put that in them.
But to your point, Stevie, if we go back to that last goal today, we're talking about 89th minute, you're winning away from home 3-2. Marco Llorente in an advanced position for no reason whatsoever. The sequence of plays starts with a throw-in by Club Rouge. The guy who receives the ball in the middle of the park completely open. Again, 89th minute. Able to turn and then able to find a pass behind the defender. 89th minute.
But those things are mentality.
Well, I know, but you're talking about the players that they have signed. Marco Llorente has been there for life, apparently. I mean, he has been there forever. And so these are things that you're not expecting. You're not expecting from the players that you're signing, but you're certainly not expecting it from players that have been in this environment for as long as they have. It is really difficult to figure out Atletico Madrid. They are capable of anything and everything at all times.
Just a reminder, we stay late to answer your questions on Extra Time. A lot of frustrated Arsenal fans have been in touch.
No.
We'll be answering some of their questions on YouTube. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Thank you very much for all of your messages. A lot with kind of this sort of vibe. Why does Arsenal hate their fans? Oh, man.
They don't make it easy for them, do
They
they?
were thinking Wolves, perfect. That will extend our lead nicely at the top. And then Spurs. And now this has happened. I read a stat. Now, you can believe this or not. Do you want to hear my stat?
Okay.
What have we said no?
This is the first time in the history of the Premier League a team that sits at the top of the table has had a 2-0 lead and let it slip against a team in the relegation zone. It's never happened before.
Oh, I'd never survived unless I'd known that.
Hey, that's a good one. If it's true, maybe made up. Who knows?
But you went with it anyway.
It's out there now. No, I've gone
Listen,
for it.
the bottom line is, even the most staunch Arsenal fan cannot turn round today and not think they're going to bottle it. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right. But do the
Because-
players think that?
No, I don't think the players think they're going to bottle it, but I think you said it at the start of the show we did earlier. You started with, the players know it now, and the manager knows it now, that actually they can make a mess of it.
Yep.
And that's key, that's huge. You know, when you're running around on the field and you're playing, and you know by hook or by crook, you're going to win the game. It could be Saka, it could be him, it could be Gabriel. You just know you're going to do it.
Sure.
When that switches to we're not sure, that's a huge, huge psychological difference.
Ali, before you answer, can I ask the next question?
Sure, go ahead.
Because it's a similar vein.
All right, go ahead.
Ali,
yeah.
will Arsenal bottle the Premier League title? So bottling it, is that an English phrase more than an American phrase?
Yeah, that.
You would say choking over here, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Where does bottle it come from, Stevie?
I have no idea.
That's a very interesting, that could be another stat I could bring up.
Yeah, well.
Right, Ali, you go for it. I'm going to
You do the
ChatGPT.
research.
Hello.
At least this one would be more important.
I don't believe that Manchester City has proven to be consistent enough, solid enough, dynamic enough, nor explosive enough to go on a long run of games, winning match after match after match, which they have done in seasons in the past. So I do think that there is some room for mistake here for Arsenal, and it feels like this may be that room for mistake. But if they allow Manchester City to continue to hang around, they're asking for unnecessary stress, which I'm guessing that's where the Arsenal fans are right now, unnecessary stress. I'm going to say Arsenal will go on to win it regardless, but it won't be nearly as straightforward as it may have seemed a couple of months ago.
ChatGPT is not 100% sure where it's come from, and I can't really explain it too much because it has a bit of a crude thing to it.
Okay.
But it could be from Cockney rhyming slang.
Okay.
Bottle and glass. And you can think, what rhymes with glass, and then where are we going with that? That's pretty, am I making sense? Yes, okay, good.
Right.
Stevie, after seeing Wolves' performance today, do you think they would have been competitive enough to have made the knockout rounds of the Champions League? Surely they can't be worse than Qarabag, who were 5-0 down to Newcastle at half-time today.
Well, I must admit, if Qarabag played Wolves tomorrow, I'd fancy Wolves.
Yep.
So, I didn't quite get all the
If
questions.
Qarabag can get into the knockout stages, then surely Wolves could as well.
Well, not really. That's oversimplifying it.
Okay.
Because if Karabakh, their qualification is against teams who are clearly not as good as Karabakh, then that's why they're in the Champions League.
No, I don't think you answered the question, really.
Well, if Karabakh were in the Premier League,
Right.
they would be bottom of the league, below Wolves.
Okay.
And they wouldn't be in the Champions League.
Right.
But they don't play in the Premier League. And because of the league they play in,
Yes.
and they're the best team,
Yes.
it just means that the other teams, in comparison to Newcastle or Wolves or anybody in the Premier League,
Make the same point
are
again that you made before.
rubbish.
Now, I understand what your point is.
Well, I just didn't think you understood it.
No, I did understand it, but the person is suggesting that Wolves would go further than Karabakh in this competition.
Which I won't disagree. I've just sat here and told you that Wolves are better than Karabakh.
Okay, right, good.
And I did it twice, by the way.
Then you,
I told you twice because you told me.
But then
You've answered it the same way.
then you dismissed it about who they were playing to get in the Champions League, which was irrelevant.
Because
really,
the way you asked me a question,
yes,
you were suggesting that Karabakh would do better than Wolves. That's how you put it.
Okay.
Which is why I told you they wouldn't.
Right. but
That's the
then-
reason I told you they wouldn't.
So then
'cause
why did you bring up the
question-
rest? Why did you bring up the rest?
The rest of what?
Karabakh are the best team of the competitors in which they're competing with. What relevant?
He doesn't listen to a word, does he?
But what
I
relevance?
just told you
What relevance does that
tell
have
you
to
what.
the answer?
the question that you gave me
Yes.
was towards
Yes.
Karabakh would do better than Wolves in the Champions League. That's the way you came. After I told you twice that Wolves were better than Karabakh, you came back a third time, and the way you put the question made it sound as though
So why did that
Karabakh
feel
were
you
better
need to
than
tell me
Wolves.
that they got into the Champions League by beating inferior competition?
with people like you've got to tell you over and over and over till it actually sinks
People
in.
like you.
But what you're telling
Sinks into that silly
what you're
little
telling me is no
sponge.
relevance to your
That
answer.
little sponge brain of yours.
Go on the defence. Dan, I've always wanted to ask you this.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Okay.
What was your favourite football team growing up, and who do you support now? My favourite football team featured a man to my left. Chivas USA. No.
Thank you.
No, in the 80s, where I grew up, there were no big teams or any teams around, or electricity or much. It was either basically playground politics, Liverpool or Manchester United. That was kind of the 80s who you supported. So I supported Liverpool. Then I moved to Southampton, worked for them. They paid me, so I supported them. Went to Real Madrid. They paid me more, so I supported them. And then I came here. Now I don't really support anyone, apart from England.
Oh, you're a Real Madrid fan.
I don't think so.
You should sit you should sit behind you
No,
watching Real Madrid.
I would disagree. I would disagree. I think England.
Ali, am I off mark here?
I still think there is some Real Madrid blood in there somewhere.
Thank you.
For Stevie, we've seen big club after big club go up against Bodo and struggle. Have you ever played in such freezing conditions on artificial turf? If yes, can you talk about your experience and what makes it so difficult? Can we bring up a caveat here on Bodo Glimt? They went to Madrid and beat Atletico Madrid in Madrid at the Metropolitano. So I think, no, they'll carry on.
But there is no question that they have an advantage at home. When you play on an artificial surface, it's a completely different ball game. The bounce is 100 times different, and the ball itself, you have to strike the ball in a different way.
Okay.
On an artificial surface.
So explain that a little bit more in detail.
You're gonna have to help me out here, Ali. See, whenever I played on an artificial surface, and whenever any of my teams played on an artificial surface, the amount of passes and the amount of strikes on the ball that were so off has to be because of the surface.
Okay.
And if you add the fact that, it's a different bounce completely, so you don't know when it's going to bounce up and hit you in the chest, or when it's going to bounce and hit you in the shin, all of that takes time for you to work out. And so that's why teams with maybe lesser talent, obviously Bodo's a good team, but teams with lesser talent can take advantage of that extra little bit of second to close you down and make it harder for you. I wish I could explain better the striking of the ball.
There's more give on the natural grass than there is on the artificial turf. So think about it so you can visualize it. Think about it when you are at the driving range and you're hitting off the mat or you're hitting off the grass. There's more give when you're hitting the ball on a natural surface than there is on an artificial surface. So that, to your point, Stevie, it affects how you strike the ball and the quality of your strike. So, of course, if you're used to doing it, then what it takes is practice. What it takes is being around it and how the ball reacts so that you're able to anticipate, one, how you're about to strike the ball, which is important, but it's also important that the other guy knows where this ball is going to go and how that pass is going to react when it's hit towards you. In the artificial turf, which is very clear to see, the skid of the ball is different, particularly if it's cold, which it is in Norway. And then the bounce of the ball, sometimes it gets to you, sometimes it doesn't get to you, sometimes it dies on you. It also takes some time. So the quality of possession is not nearly as clean as it would be in grass. And so to that end, this is why you see Bodo Glimt. They're not exactly a team that just keeps the ball all the time. When they get it, they go.
Right.
And it's 3-4 passes, and now they're in an attacking position. They're not hanging around, hey, let's complete 7-8 passes, because even for them, keeping the ball in artificial turf it's more complicated than it would be on natural grass.
Thank you very much, boys. That is it. That brings us to the end of today's show. Who's back tomorrow? Is it you tomorrow?
I am.
Of course, more turf talk. Be
sure
sure to join
I'll break it down for you
on the next edition of the show.